Welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because it's like deja vu all over again. I am the blogger in question and the moderator of this podcast. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. Have you discovered that we have been producing more podcast episodes? In fact, CPU! Happily keeps growing, and we have several new episodes coming down the pike. As always, though, because the panelists and I have to get up from our couches sometime and have lives behind the podcast, the episodes will still likely come at irregular intervals, so subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes to stay on top of brand new episodes. We have several episodes already published discussing Downton Abbey, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Doctor Who, Orange is the New Black, and Once Upon a Time. We've taken a look back at True Blood, and more episodes are in the works, including a look back at the show Ally McBeal, and hopefully many, many more. If you don't hear your show in this podcast format, though, check out the blog. I still write reviews, and I'm always seeking new podcast panelists, so if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, and an email address at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always subscribe to the blog and sign the guest book or comment on posts you see. We love feedback. In fact, we're fishing for it. Give us some feedback, why don't you? Today's panel and I are looking back at a show that I think it's safe to say we all love dearly and or hold very close to our TV-loving hearts. In fact, this show is so well liked by this panel and went on for so long, it lasted for 9 seasons, that one mere podcast episode will not suffice to cover our thoughts. So this is the first of 5 CPU! Episode discussions in which we will be reflecting upon this groundbreaking program, including the mid-season revival event miniseries related to it, scheduled to premiere on Fox in January 2016. I'm, of course, talking about The X-Files, the science fiction horror drama created by Chris Carter that aired on the Fox network from 1993 to 2002 to the overall tune of 202 episodes. The series revolves around FBI Special Agents Fox Mulder, played by David Duchovny, and Dana Scully, played by Gillian Anderson, investigating so-called X-Files, i.e. marginalized unsolved cases outside of the FBI mainstream involving paranormal phenomena. Agent Mulder wholeheartedly believes in the existence of aliens and the paranormal, while Scully, a skeptic, is assigned to apply scientific analysis to Mulder's discoveries for the purpose of debunking his work and steering him back toward the FBI mainstream, in which he was initially a gifted profiler on the fast track. Early in the series, both agents become pawns in a larger conflict and come to trust only each other. They develop a close relationship, which begins as a platonic friendship, but becomes a romance, despite early resistance by the show's creator, by the end of the series. Episodes consist of so-called mythology story arcs devoted to the larger nefarious conspiracy to cover up the existence of extraterrestrials and their apparently hostile aims, as well as Monster of the Week episodes, i.e. standalone episodes exploring subjects of horror, science fiction, humanism, and at times humor. The X-Files mythos, in fact, is largely driven by the character of Mulder, whose adamancy about the existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life and its presence on Earth earns him the nickname Spooky from FBI coworkers and springs from the claimed abduction of his sister Samantha by extraterrestrials when Mulder was 12. Her abduction motivates Mulder throughout most of the series. Because of this, as well as more nebulous desires for vindication and the revelation of truths kept hidden by human authorities, Mulder struggles to maintain objectivity in his investigations. Scully is a foil for Mulder in this regard, because as a medical doctor and natural skeptic, Scully approaches cases with complete detachment even when Mulder, despite his considerable training, loses his objectivity. Although she is frequently able to offer scientific alternatives to Mulder's deductions, she is rarely able to refute them completely. Over the course of the series, she becomes increasingly dissatisfied with her own ability to approach the cases scientifically, After a 7-season development that results in Mulder's abduction at the hands of aliens, however, Scully becomes a reluctant believer who manages to explain the paranormal with science. The main story arc involves the agents' efforts to uncover a government conspiracy to hide the existence of extraterrestrials on Earth and their sinister collaboration with those governments. Mysterious men, comprising a shadow element within the U.S. government known as the Syndicate, are the major villains in the series. They are usually represented by the cigarette-smoking man, played by William B. Davis, a ruthless killer, masterful politician, negotiator, and the series' principal antagonist, though the viewer learns of other characters directly and indirectly attached to the Syndicate. The first 7 seasons featured Duchovny and Anderson and their characters equally. In the last 2 seasons, Anderson took precedence while Duchovny appeared intermittently, stemming from a dispute between him and the show's creator. As a result, new main characters were introduced in FBI agents John Doggett, played by Robert Patrick, and Monica Reyes, played by Annabeth Gish. The characters assigned to investigate the X-Files throughout the series report to FBI Assistant Director Walter Skinner, played by Mitch Pileggi. Initially considered a cult show, the X-Files turned into a pop culture touchstone that tapped into a prevalent public mistrust of governments and large institutions and embraced conspiracy theories and spirituality. Both the show itself and lead actors Duchovny and Anderson received multiple awards and nominations, and by the end of its first airing, it was the longest-running science fiction series in U.S. television history. The series also spawned a franchise which includes the Lone Gunman spin-off, 2 theatrical films, and accompanying merchandise, and has been ranked in several television best-of lists, also covered by the CPU blog, including rankings at number 5 on Entertainment Weekly's Best Cult TV list, number 26 on TV Guide's Best Written TV list, Time Magazine's All-Time 100 Greatest TV Shows, and number 3 on The Hollywood Reporter's Favorite 100 TV Shows list. In March 2015, it was announced that the series would return as a miniseries, with Chris Carter as executive producer and writer, and David Duchovny, Gillian Anderson, Annabeth Gish, and Mitch Pileggi all reprising their roles. It will premiere on January 24th, 2016. In the meantime, today, in this first part of our 5-part discussion, our robust panel of X-Files scholars will talk about the finer and less fine points of the original X-Files program in another chapter of our Looking Back podcast episodes, wherein we review a show that has been gone, either via natural end or cancellation, for some time. In this episode, we will be focusing specifically upon seasons 1 through 3, covering the series' beginning and its initial growing pains and catapult to national popularity. It should be noted that all of our panelists have viewed the entire series and may discuss sensitive plot points. So, for those of you who haven't watched The X-Files, first, rectify that, and second, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. At this time, I'd like to introduce the panel.
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Cool. So tell us, Sarah, what made you start watching The X-Files? How'd you find out about it? What kept you watching? Did you watch all of it? Tell us how you found the show. And then, how would you rate your interest in the show? And panelists, I need you to give 2 answers for this.
Okay, 2.
Yeah, one for how you felt at the beginning and one for how you felt at the end. Because it's a 9-season show, so things might have changed. So, tell us what your interest is. I've got options. This is a Couch Potatoes Unite standard. Okay. Do you want to believe you love everything about the X-Files, good or bad, and can't wait for more, like Mulder? Are you skeptical? There are things you believe or disbelieve, like or dislike, and you prefer to rely on science to frame your preference for this show, though you're ironically more open to religious experiences, like Scully? Do you walk the line of skeptic and believer? Really, watching this show is more about doing your job and protecting those who work for you, and like the show, like Skinner? Do you believe, but for you, it's more about the fact that the government is conspiring to cover up the truth in the name of protection of the public, and you love the power, like CGB Spender, a.k.a. the cigarette-smoking man, cancer man, black lung son of a bitch, or his fellow syndicate partners? Did you watch it because you wanted the truth, whatever that truth may be, and no matter how open you truly were to it, like Doggett? Did you watch it because you think you might be a little psychic and there are greater mysteries and questions worth answering, like Reyes? Did you watch it because you needed ideas for your own independent publication about government conspiracies and the truth about extraterrestrials and other supernatural possibilities, like the lone gunman? Or you didn't watch, P.S. I don't expect you to answer this, but I'm going to read it. You didn't watch, you may or may not have eyes, green acidic blood, and the need to colonize, so TV is not very important to you, like the alien bounty hunter.
Okay.
Lots of choices, always lots of choices.
I started watching this series, because I was dating a guy at the time, and I made him watch Roswell. Anyone?
Roswell, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, this is okay, but come on.
I agree.
Here's a show that you should watch with me. And I was like, okay. And then I married him. So obviously it went well. And that's our child you probably hear in the
Yes,
background.
Jack the Junior Podcaster is back.
He's
Hi,
back.
Jack.
He is a green alien bounty hunter. He has not viewed the show.
Okay.
So he he's laughing right now. But I really think I was a Mulder starting out, and I was a Mulder finishing up. You can disagree with me, my husband.
No, sure, that's good.
I want to believe. I think, and I liked it all along. I never had any real issues with liking it. I just sailed through. Now, it had been off the air at the time that I watched it by several years. So, and I had seen episodes when it aired, but I had never watched it in its entirety. So,
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm that guy that made Sarah watch it.
Yeah.
I'm Mulder. I don't know. Even though there are a couple episodes that I don't really love, when I think about the new episodes coming up, I'm like Mulder. Thinks everything's aliens. I think every episode is going to be perfect. It's going to be great. So that's probably why I would be Mulder.
How did you come to watch The X-Files? How did you find it? You introduced your lovely wife to it.
I may have just accidentally stumbled upon it. It might be the first time I watched it, but I was in 7th grade when I got hooked, and my 7th grade science teacher watched it, so every Monday we would talk about it, the people who did watch it, in our little in-between class time.
what was the name of your teacher?
Mrs. Twardy.
Mrs. Twardy, if you're listening.
Thanks for...
She teaches at St. Richard's.
Yeah, she did. I still remember, showing up Monday, this is a major spoiler, but being like, she has cancer, talking about Scully. That was... Nobody else liked the X-Files in 7th grade, just me and the teacher. I kind of found it randomly. I don't know if she mentioned it first or I did, or I mentioned it not knowing if I liked it, but I kind of did, and that my science teacher liked it. I kept watching it.
Okay.
I don't know if that was season 4 or 5.
So, and you're Mulder at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah.
All right.
I also wanted to believe that it was all real, because when I did get my hands on the pilot, I'm like, oh, it's based on true events.
I can't wait to tell my story. Anyway, Hilary, welcome. Hilary is a brand new podcaster,
Hello.
and she loves this show.
I do love this show.
So tell us how you came to watch it.
It's been my favorite show nearly my entire life. Literally, I started watching it when I was 8 years old. In the very first season, the first episode I ever saw was The Jersey Devil. To people who are interested in the fact that I was 8 years old, I had multiple siblings. A couple of them were older. Person who is helping podcast.
Yes, full disclosure, the moderator is the sister in question.
Yes, and
which figures into my story, so that's fine. Good
at
transition.
the time, my older brother was casually watching it, I would say more so, and had the remote control.
Is this Austin?
Yes, this is Austin.
Shout out Austin.
Austin was watching it, and I was the younger sister, and therefore never got the remote. And on a Friday night, I was 8 years old, so I was at home. And so that's when it started. So I started watching it then, saw The Jersey Devil, was immediately fascinated with it, never stopped watching it. He did, but I did not. And so, yes, it's been with me ever since. It's never left me. So I would definitely say I was a super fan then. I am a super fan now. Definitely a Mulder, straight through.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hey, I'm Kyle, Hilary's husband.
Yes, it's a family event, this one.
And I originally started watching the X-Files the first season when it was on. I was also 8. My segue was, as a kid, I was obsessed with Erie, Indiana on Fox, which is the kids' version of X-Files.
Yes.
And it ended in, I think, 1992, right before X-Files started. So I kind of just segued from the kid version into the grown-up version. And I've always been obsessed with horror. So, like, the Monster of the Week episodes were always my favorite over the mythology. And that's what hooked me.
Okay.
We clearly had parents that were always paying attention.
Yeah. I would probably be a Skinner, more balanced.
Okay.
There's things I really love, and then things they lost me on over the course of the show, which I'll probably get into as we discuss those.
Fabulous and fair.
Kyle, did you ever watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Of course.
Okay.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
the other one that's kind of like that.
I watched that.
Amazing, there's
Yes.
a lot of celebrities in that.
I know. Okay, different podcast. I felt like that was like an Erie, Indiana type of show, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So as you all know, I got to tell my story now. As you all know, I'm Kylie, the moderator, and I know all these people. So my story about the X-Files is...
Yes, let's tell this story.
Let's tell this story. So, once upon a time...
Different show.
Once upon a time, Hilary's and my brother Austin used to watch... the Fox network, before they did the X-Files, used to, on every Friday night, air these documentaries / investigative reporting specials about whether or not aliens existed. That was about UFOs and crop circles, and there was even the shades of government conspiracy permeating those shows, and Austin watched every single one of them.
Were any of them hosted by the stupendous Yappy?
They were not, but it would have made it better.
Yeah, right. Although I wouldn't be surprised if there was some equivalent host at some point. But he literally watched all of them. So by the time the X-Files rolled around, I thought, oh boy, it's just another one of those. And I'm not going to watch it. Because I didn't always have a great social life. But when I was at home on a Friday night, there were times when I sat down and watched it with Austin and Hilary. Not very much. I do remember a handful of episodes.
You were reluctant.
I was very reluctant, though. And also didn't have control of the remote. There was a whole remote issue. Okay?
Multiple siblings.
Yes. But then I went to college. And in my freshman year, I lived with 2 other girls. And I was sick a lot my freshman year. And I remember one day I had the room all to myself, which when you live in a triple is a wonderful thing. And I was channel surfing, and it was a Friday, and I landed on the X-Files. And whether it was because I was homesick and or actually sick, or whether it was because I actually remember the episodes that I watched were Piper, Maru, and Apocrypha. Those were the very first 2. For some reason, those ones got me. Even though I had seen others, I had seen some of the standalones, I had seen some of the Myth-Arc ones from before, but those ones got me, and I not only got hooked and watched through the end of the series, I got obsessed from like 0 to 100 in a very short space of time. So, if I were to put myself on the spectrum, I would be a Scully when I first started watching, totally a Scully. But then by the end, definitely a Mulder, I would say. Although I also, like Kyle, have some meandering feelings about the last season. But we will get to that in later episodes. Today, we are going to talk about seasons 1 through 3. But what I would like to do, first of all, is I want to get everybody's temperature. I mean, obviously we all love it. But I want you to talk about the show in general and tell me what you loved. Why is it that you love this show? What didn't you love about it? And also, what seasons are your favorite? I mean, there are 9 seasons on this show. And if you talk to different people who watch the X-Files, they all have different favorites. So take a moment. Whoever wants to toss it out.
For me, season 2 and 3, I consider the golden age of X-Files.
Okay.
It's where they really established the mythology. The first season was finding itself and people finding their characters. By season 2 and then even more into season 3, everything just clicked. And then from there, it just kind of just grew and grew, and that's also when it hooked most of the audience, because it's just, every week was great. They're very, like, season 2 and 3, trying to find a least favorite episode is hard, because they're all golden in some way. Like, I can rewatch those seasons again and again, whereas some of the other seasons I have to, like, oh, this episode, I'll skip it, it's not that important.
See, I think season 3 might be my favorite, and we were just talking about this earlier because I was going over them. It just has so many good ones. I couldn't even just pick a favorite. I have 3 favorites for that season. It's so good. And, I mean, for me, it's like 3, 4, and 5 are kind of where I get in my groove a little bit with it, but 3 just has so many good Darren Morgan episodes, I think are some of my favorites.
I would say more 3 and 4. Season 4 has some of my favorites as well, so it's hard to pick. But I think what season 4 also has, though, it has some of my least favorites in there as well. That's more of a season of extremes for me. So I guess if I had to pick one, it would probably be season 3.
Yeah, for me, it's just really hard. Even when we're talking about episodes that we least like, for me, it's not really a least. It's like I kind of very little like this, little less, but seriously. I would still say right now, because it changes for me frequently, that my favorite season actually is 5, which is kind of surprising for some people because, yes, frequently people say 3, sometimes 4. I mean, I do. I love those too. 3, 4, 5, even 6. I mean, there's just so much good in all of them. It's really hard for me to narrow down, but still I'd say 5. There's just the episodes flow really well together. There are so many great standalones in there. And so I'd still say, at least, like I said, temporarily that's what I'd say. Season 5.
Nobody lists 7 or 8.
We'll get to that. Maybe it's because we're sisters, but I have to agree. When I was thinking about what my favorite seasons were, the immediate ones that came to mind were 4 and 5. But I agree with you, Nick. 4 is one of extremes, because when I was thinking about my favorites and least favorites, I have really, like, top 5 favorites in 4, and I have bottom favorites in 4.
Tell the code.
5, to me, is probably the pinnacle season for me as well. Although I do like 6. I just got done rewatching 6. The nice thing about 6 is that it's very, very consistent. I think one of the things that we can kind of get into as we talk is by the time they hit 4, 5, and 6, they really struck a rhythm. I think they were kind of finding themselves a little bit in those first couple seasons. 3, they were really, the cylinders were starting to turn, and then 4, 5, and 6 was all motors running. And I think you can tell that in 6. Now, whether or not you like the storyline in 6, that's up for debate, but we can talk about that. That will be in episode 2. Today we're going to focus on seasons 1 through 3 specifically, and this is going to be a little different from other Couch Potatoes Unite podcasts because we are actually going to be focusing more episodically than we are overall reaction to a season. And it's because we have such experts that we can do that. People who really love the show, who know the show backward and forward, will be able to talk very, very sensibly, I think, about how we feel about those shows. So, let's start it. Let's talk about it. Let's take the magical journey through the X-Files, Season 1. It begins.
Why not start with the pilot?
Yes, let's do that.
I feel like it's one of the best pilots, because usually pilots are rough.
Yes.
And I can watch... You can't skip the pilot if you're going to watch the whole show. But it's just well-written and a great story. Like, I feel like anyone, whether they know what the X-Files is or not, they would watch that, and it's an enjoyable sci-fi, like a short movie almost.
There's not too much exposition, really. You kind of just get right in there, like, and go. I appreciate that.
And the thing about the pilot, too, is, like, if you watch the whole series and go back and watch the first scene where Mulder and Scully meet each other, it has more meaning. It's not painful to watch like a lot of other pilots where, like, oh, you can tell that these actors don't really know each other yet. But with that one, it's more heartfelt, more emotional. It resonates a lot more.
Mm-hmm. It's like instant chemistry. You could already tell right away that what they had as characters and as actors was just going to be amazing. And it continued to be, essentially.
I agree. I agree with Nick. observation that it's one of the best pilots ever, I think, is true. You're right, Sarah. Not a lot of exposition. I think what's really cool about the pilot is the striking visuals. I mean, I didn't watch the pilot when it first aired. Of course, I had to go back and rewatch the series. But one of the things I really appreciate about it is the whole trajectory with Max and the scene. Even still, I've seen the series now a good dozen times. Even the scene where he gets beamed up, for lack of better terminology, that very first episode is very striking. And gives me chills. It still gives me chills.
Well, they had a unique idea of just this woman, okay, this is your assignment, so go. And she doesn't really know what she's getting into, and neither do we. Mm-hmm. So they let us kind of see it through her eyes and just go with it on a journey. You know, they could have written it totally differently, and they didn't. And I think that helps you as a viewer. Because I don't know what's going on yet. I mean, I've seen that pilot a bunch of times, and I still am like, oh yeah, this is what, yeah. But you don't have to know, because she doesn't know, and it's just kind of nice, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of her reactions to Mulder's quirkiness are exactly like you as the viewer, when you're seeing, like, okay, why is he doing that? And
right.
It's a perfect vehicle to introduce you to everything.
And can we make special mention of the fact that the smoking man's there, but he says nothing. He was never supposed to be more than just a fly on the wall with a cigarette.
Originally, he wasn't even going to have the cigarette. Originally, he wasn't even going to have the cigarette. Because William B. Davis, he was supposed to just stand there and look ominous, but he needed something to do with his hands. And so he came up with the smoking idea, and then it's just such iconic for the series, just because of an actor's little choice.
It's the name of his character.
Struggling actors, this goes to show, take every job seriously, because it could turn into a big thing for you.
And don't try to chew the scenery. If you just stand there, they might bring you back.
Right. Well, he had sort of this menacing, like, kind of putting his hand on his head, watching Scully. So what are some other episodes that you enjoyed? Of course, season 1... we kind of have to, I think, go by informant for a little bit. Season 1 was the Deep Throat season, so Jerry Hardin played Deep Throat. Mulder's very first informant.
Yes.
Such an iconic role for him. Anytime he's in anything else, we're like,
It's Deep
Throat. This was a hard one for me to pick a favorite of the episode, of the season. It was hard for me to pick a favorite episode. I don't know why. But I picked my favorite as Darkness Falls, which I don't know if anyone else even likes that one. But for me, it was like, that was one of the episodes that, like, just kind of hooked me in. It had that, like, eerie horror kind of feel to it almost, and I just really liked it. I thought it was frightening.
Okay. One of my favorites. It's up there.
My favorite's Beyond the Sea.
I have that on my list, too.
And just I love that one because it just completely reverses who they are. Mulder being doubtful and just trying to be careful, and then Scully desperately wanting to believe in something paranormal. Just in that episode, her dad just died, and she's just clinging to something, and he's trying to stay grounded. And just I love that role reversal. Plus, they sets up a little joke for another season in Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose that is just like, unless you watch an actual fan of the series, it's like a one-off line in that episode that ties into this, and it's just hilarious.
His name's Brad Dourif.
Brad Dourif,
right?
oh yes. Chucky or Grima Wormtongue.
Yes,
and
excellent
he's really
performance
great in that
episode.
And that's what a lot of the episodes I love is if they have an amazing villain that's automatically puts it at the top of my list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, both the episodes that we've already talked about would be my favorites in this.
So
in the
Beyond
first
the
season.
Sea.
Yeah, and again, I love too many of them, but like really, it's very difficult for me. But seriously, the pilot is up there. It's just up there because it just already within that, like, not a lot of exposition, but already sets up so much in such a short amount of time. And Beyond the Sea, it was already changing the tone. There was so much character development with it. And yes, like you were mentioning, his performance was just out. It was because I was very young when I first saw it, and so I was just completely overwhelmed by it, but I could not take my eyes off of it. And just to see everything as it happened, it was just great.
That's the first episode we get to know Scully a little bit.
Yes,
like, they delve into her story.
Is that the first time we hear about her religion really in depth?
Yeah,
I was going to say there's
somewhat.
shades of it in other, but that's the one we really realize that she really does actually cling to that like a life raft sometimes.
It's a good choice for the hard scientist because it really did set up, like, Mulder believes in anything. And there's even random scenes where he's like still watching that Bigfoot footage and stuff. But anytime there like might be an angel involved and there is something, if it was anything else, Mulder would be like, this is what it is. He won't even be like, maybe it's aliens. Like, he doesn't even make that leap. It's like, no, Scully, you're wrong here. And it happens seldom, but it really is a good juxtaposition for them to pick that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and now, so like it ties into Mulder's history of how he was like the star profiler. So he wasn't always just completely about the paranormal and the X-Files. That was pretty much his reward. He got his dream job because he was so great at profiling actual regular criminals and getting in their heads, and that showed it off more than any other episode.
For sure. And we'll get into this as we go through the seasons, but I think some of the most compelling episodes are when we see Scully's spirituality, because it throws them into that role reversal. Because all of a sudden he becomes skeptical and she becomes the believer. And why is it any more or less legitimate than believing in aliens or believing in the paranormal? I actually have 5 favorites from the first season. The first season is hard because I didn't watch that one, as I've mentioned, while it was on. I had to go back and find it. But Beyond the Sea is definitely one. The pilot is definitely one. I really like Fallen Angel, which introduces Max. I think that I like that one because Max is crazier than Mulder. But he actually ends up saying some really important things, and it kind of, I think one of the observations I'm going to make right now, early on, is that I think the myth arc episodes, and really they're not arcs yet in season 1, that kind of happens in season 2, but the myth arc episodes are almost better and more tantalizing in the earlier seasons than they are later, and the standalone, it's reverse later on. Like the standalones get better and better and better, and the mythology kind of goes woo, crazy places. So most of mine are the mythology episodes out of the first season. Fallen Angel, I love Eve.
Eve
is scary.
Eve is one of the most memorable too, yeah.
Yeah. What's her name that was on Frasier?
I just want to say BB.
Yeah,
BB.
She's an amazing actress.
And was amazing in that episode.
Is, and when you look at her body of work, we were just saying the other day, it's like, she never has her own vehicle. She just goes into everything. Like,
and it's really hard to find her unless you want to be like, I'll watch one episode of season 4 of a random television show. Like, it's really hard to find her.
So good.
She's so good. And that one creeps me out a little bit, I'm not going to lie. And Erlenmeyer Flask, which is the season finale for season 1. Obviously, spoilers, there's going to be a lot of those people. I hope you watch the show. That's when Deep Throat meets his untimely end.
And yet is in a couple episodes later.
Yes,
anyway.
he is. No one ever truly dies on the X-Files, don't you know? But that's when we learn about purity control, and of course we don't know yet what that means, but it starts to throw out these little clues that get built on and built on. So I really love that one, and to me that kind of lurches the series forward.
Of course, watching it, I was mad that they killed Deep Throat off, but reading it was a smart reason to. They found themselves falling into, we could just easily have Deep Throat come in for the last scene and kind of just explain it all, and it's taken care of, and we don't have to. It was just an easy trapdoor for them to use, so that was smart of them to not just keep using that as a crutch and force them to really work harder at writing some more episodes.
Well, for sure. I mean, not only was he such a fatherly figure that their relationship was almost too easy, but it also created a shock value. Like, oh my God, anything can happen on the X-Files.
He was the closest thing to a third cast member. Nobody in season 1 is in any more than an episode here or there.
Yeah.
You just have Mulder and Scully, and then he was there. So the only other shot you could have done was killed Mulder or Scully, which would have been horrible.
And there would be no show. Do you have any less favorite?
Space. I have like a whole page of notes here on how boring it was. And just how a ghost alien possession is the lamest plot you could come up with.
I didn't mind Space.
I didn't mind Space either. And
It's not my
again,
favorite,
being
but
8 years old, it scared the bejesus out of me.
It is a little scary.
I mean, there's the visualization of the ghost possessing him and entering him, and you can be bored about it, but hey, how would you feel if your icon, Mulder's icon, was being possessed and you're watching it take place? I don't think it's boring.
By a ghost alien?
Okay, crazier things have happened on the series, though. So really,
I thought you were gonna say in real life. Hilary, I don't want to hang out at your house.
well,
Well, and they try to make
Here's
it
the thing. I think Hillary will defend any episode of the X
no,
Files.
I will not.
But if
we
you
haven't
actually,
gotten to the later season.
because like I was curious on the ranking on that after I created my list of least favorites, and that is pretty much voted the least favorite X Files episode.
Really?
Almost unanimously, yeah.
I don't think that's true.
I actually read Schizogyny was.
Oh,
Which we'll talk
that's
about.
low on my list, but
A lot
that's
of-
not as boring as space. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
and that's actually
Maybe
in part
it's
2.
just a
So
boy thing. I don't know. Any other listeners out
I
there?
did not care for Gender Bender. I don't hate it, but I'm like, nah, really? Come on.
I think the funniest thing about Gender Bender is that Krychek is one of the people.
I know,
Nicholas Lee.
but I just, that one, I was like, really? This is what this is? Like, the clay and the...
I don't mind that one.
I don't hate it. I mean,
There's quite a few
It's
other
just-
ones that I like less than that.
but I think it's interesting that nobody said among their favorites Squeeze and Tombs.
Actually, I didn't get a chance to
They're very...
No, Squeeze and Tombs is both in season 1.
Okay.
Yep, yeah.
Tombs actually is one of my
I need the
favorites.
Yeah.
Which one is first? Squeeze or Tombs?
Squeeze is first.
But like,
Tombs is...
I remember when I watched it, like seeing like, oh hey, that was the guy from way early in the season. And a lot of shows I watched at that point, they, you beat a threat, it's gone. But like that helped establish this world. Like these things are still there. He's still. It's more. It builds the world. And plus, that's also the first episode with Skinner, who was actually my favorite character. So for me, it's a particular.
Oh, so that
memorable.
informs your choice.
Yes.
I got it.
What's interesting is that, and maybe the mythology is why they didn't feel the need to do this, because since they had an ongoing mythology, but they only bring back a Monster of the Week character one other time in the whole series.
Pusher.
Oh, and Donnie. So
Thatcher.
3.
Yeah,
So there's
Donnie,
3.
There's 3, yeah.
Out of 9 years, they didn't keep. Let's bring this guy back again and see what the Jersey Devil's doing. They really.
That's
do
my
it
least
well.
favorite. I'm just gonna throw that
I
out
like
there.
the Jersey Devil. That's your least favorite?
That is my least favorite from season 1.
What about Ghost in the Machine? That's boring.
Is that in season 1?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
It's not memorable enough to be least favorite. The Jersey Devil was, for me, it just doesn't land for me. That one, it's not scary. It's kind of boring. I don't.
What about that
You weren't
opening?
scared by the naked lady in the woods?
No.
You weren't scared about the fact that he was taking the homeless man's place in the alley and waiting for this.
I was not
Preacher.
8 years old. I was not 8 years old when I saw that one. No, I think that one's boring. I don't. Squeeze and Tombs is a little on the disgust factor, but I think they're really well written episodes.
I was surprised somebody didn't say those as their favorite, because they're kind of iconic.
They're kind of
Squeeze and
they're
Tombs are
iconic.
nice.
And
I put them kind of together.
I
as my
can't think of
second.
that.
They're a
Dog
little too gross to be my
Yeah.
favorite.
is like another guy that is
The actor
has a
who
whole
plays
weird
him.
personal life now.
I was gonna
But
say now it's even creepier.
it's even creepier, but he kind of does creepy roles, like in The Green Mile, and he appears in these. And
Gillian Anderson had said the scariest part about working on the X-Files was working with that actor. Like, he tried to give her a birthday present during the filming. And
I believe
her
he married a 16.
He married a
he
16.
did,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Courtney
wow.
Scott.
Well, they were dating when she was like 14 or 15, and they married when she was like.
But
16.
her mom said it was okay.
Yeah, he was
Are
her
they
acting,
from
her acting
Vancouver?
teacher.
Yeah.
Are they from Vancouver?
No. I think
Okay.
L.A. is where they met her.
And he insisted on doing the scene nude when he was underneath the escalator in his
yeah.
nest. I don't know if that was
And
the first one or the second.
That's the second one. That's when they're
In his
rediscovering
nest, yeah.
him.
He's like, no, I'll
He
just be
had to
naked for it.
relocate because they basically found his hideout in the first one. So
Right.
Yes.
when he was basically let go from jail, that he had to seek out his new hideout, and yes, that scene is pretty gross.
Yeah, it's gross. We're going to do lists in our 4th episode, and one of them is the gross out factor. That one figures pretty high on my list. So,
The whole episode is green to me because
Yeah.
of the bile. All I
Yeah.
can see is the green bile.
yeah.
Not mile, bile, but he was in the Green Mile as well. So
he was in the
he was a
Green
creepy
Mile.
creep in that. So
As-
check that out.
So maybe that makes him not a good
He
actor,
killed
but when he does those roles,
The
it's
mouse.
Spoilers for those who haven't seen it.
Green Miles better than the X-Files.
I'm just saying.
So
Anything
yeah.
else you want to say about season 1? Did you like the arc episodes more or the standalone episodes more? Or didn't you care? Because season 1 was kind of, we're just
Pretty
starting out, we're
scattershot.
finding our footing.
Which is
I-
typical.
Yeah.
I feel like the episodes EBE and Deep Throat are more of the story arc, and it's really hard to think back on them and like separate them. I know the gist of what happens, but they don't stand out, but they weren't bad episodes.
Yeah, they didn't build anything like ground shattering.
Yeah,
It was just like kind of little nuggets as they were getting more into it.
So I think we've discussed season 1. Let's talk about season 2. So in season 2, I'm going to mention a couple of the major things that happened that influenced the show. First off, of course, they killed off Deep Throat, so they brought in X, who was played by Stephen Williams.
Yes.
So that was one big thing. The second big thing is that Gillian Anderson, in her private life, was pregnant, got pregnant between the changeover from season 1 to season 2. She informs Chris Carter, David Duchovny, and the rest of the show's creators about it, and so they have to make do without her for a few episodes. So out of that, we get Scully's abduction, which actually informs the entire rest of the series, just about. So that's important because I don't know who wants to start with their favorite episodes, but I know what some of mine are from season 2.
It's not my favorite, but you're segueing into Dwayne Barry and Ascension, which are very good episodes in my opinion. I like them a lot. Is this this is also why we get Krychek, right?
Yes. I mean, those 2 episodes pretty much built what the entire
show is.
All seasons will connect to those 2 episodes in some way.
Which those 2, and they also go back to the pilot a couple times towards the end. But yeah, that's the huge mythology is based on Scully's, basically based on Gillian Anderson getting pregnant.
Yeah.
The real life Piper Maru.
That's true.
Thank you, Gillian Anderson.
I know.
Thank you, whoever got Gillian Anderson pregnant.
Yes.
She's
That
not
also
with
gave
him anymore.
No, she's not. But
Well, then a
still.
special thank you to him. I don't know if he's getting any credit for anything in real life, but
I'm sure he's not.
Well,
call us if you want to have
if
pies.
you watch any making of X-Files specials or when they've gone back and done cast interviews, that's one of the things that David Duchovny talks about is it made them all very nervous, but then it turned into one of the luckiest breaks for the whole series because their storylines were trajectoried off that way.
If you're watching this season, you, except for the episode 3, which I hate, you almost don't miss her too much because it's at least about her being gone and finding her.
Yeah,
She's still part of the show.
Probably worked more than she should have because she's in enough of like One Breath and a couple of the episodes around it coming back. I mean, I think she was still in bed rest for One Breath.
She was in a coma for like 2
She
episodes.
is.
But she also crawled into the trunk of a car for an episode while she was very pregnant. So, thanks for doing that.
I was gonna say, like all the great episodes of season 2, and my favorite is actually just like one of the Monsters of the Week, Host.
Oh,
I
like
love
Host.
Fluke Man. I love Fluke Man.
Yeah.
That one's high on the gross factor.
Played by Darren Morgan.
Yes.
One of the writers.
And like the thing I love most about that episode though is Fluke Man gets caught. Everybody sees him. So it's like one of those few times where everyone doesn't think Mulder's crazy. He's like, oh, I told you there's this monster, and there it is right there. It's in the cell right there.
He's literally in our sewage.
Yeah, and so I just love the fact that finally after season 1 losing evidence or we don't have anything to show for it, Fluke Man vindicated Mulder, and he gets away at the end. And I was like, the whole time I was watching that show, I kept thinking, Fluke Man's in the sewer. They have to come back to that.
That would be another great Monster of the Week sequel.
Well,
as Nick was
in the
mentioning.
comics, they actually did that.
They
Season
did.
10, X-Files
I
season
have
10.
them.
And so they had a
Graphic
sequel to
novel.
Host.
I
But
do.
My favorite from this season is a Monster of the Week, and the reason it's my favorite is because it is the first episode I ever watched on TV as it aired. I believe I was in the 7th or 8th grade, so I'm a little older than Hilary, obviously, or if you're doing the math, people. But that episode is Humbug.
That's on my list.
And let it be known that I now watch American Horror Story Freak Show, and the whole time I'm like, Humbug. Oh, you could be in here. Where are you? But I just, and the whole, when Nick said, let's watch X-Files, I'm like, oh, I saw the one with the twin guy, and he came off. And Nick's like, what? I'm like, yeah, the guy and the twin. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. I thought that was a big part of the whole thing. He's like, no, that's just one episode.
But when that aired, it was a big special. It's the Halloween special.
Yes, no,
That's
that
why I
was-
remember it. Because they hit an hour-long Goosebumps episode of the Haunted Mask. And then
watched
Humbug right
that.
after.
How did
And
I
that's
miss
like one of the
Humbug?
great. That's one of the greatest nights of my life.
Yeah, I was staying over at a friend's house, my friend Becca's house. We were having a sleepover, and we were looking for scary stuff to watch, and we were like, let's watch this. We don't know what this is about, and I think we were all very disturbed, but so
But
good.
it also
That's
kind of touches on a lot of the show's first like comedic moments,
For sure.
which becomes more common obviously with the later seasons, but there's definitely, you're actually seeing more of their playful sides in that episode, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Because they're very good at that, and they're very good at it together.
And it has like one of the best episode endings ever, with Mulder standing all heroically, and then when the guy's like, "You want to go through your life looking like him?"
Yes.
I like
just-
it when Scully eats the bug.
She really did that too.
I know.
She really did that for the episode.
It's a very good episode.
Yeah.
It's Darren Morgan's first, the guy who played the Fluke Man. He's
Yeah.
a writer who's, I think, overall, any top 10 list will have multiple episodes written by Darren Morgan, and he only wrote 4?
It's, no more than 6 for sure. I'm not sure the number though.
Well,
I'd have
he
to like
kind
tally.
of helped write a little on the first season, but he only is credited
Yeah,
for
there was
like
some collaboration.
at least 4, because his brother was working on it.
And he also
Yeah.
wrote the crossover episodes of Millennium that crossed over with X-Files.
Kyle will be talking about Millennium
I love
as we
Millennium.
progress through the episodes because he likes Millennium.
So Humbug was my second favorite. I really enjoy it, but it's not even my favorite by Darren Morgan.
I know which that one is.
My favorite episode in season 2 is The Hand of Verletz. The Hand
Yeah.
that...
The Hide
whatever.
of Verlets.
The scary teacher one.
That's very scary.
It was scary, but there were aspects that were a little comical to me about it. I'm not sure. I don't know. Well,
Hilary's questioning you. Something's wrong.
I don't know. The hyper-digestive rate of the snake, I guess, was funny to me.
Darren Morgan is credited with 5 episodes. Blood,
Oh, Blood is probably my least favorite by Dan Morgan, then.
Humbug,
War of the Copper.
and then Clyde Bruckman, War of the Coprahages, and
Copperfages.
thank
War
you,
of the
and Jose
Coprahages.
Chang.
Thank
Jose
you.
Chung's from outer
I
space.
think it means poop eaters or
The
something.
cockroaches.
So-
It's the cockroach one.
Anyway, back to you, Nick.
So which one is your favorite episode from
That
season
one,
2?
Behind the Verletz.
That's
is my
right, you
favorite
said
from
that.
season 2.
That one's chilling.
It is.
That's
It's,
the message at the end. That's chilling.
Well, and it is actually kind of freaky. I mean, that one still gives me the heebie.
well, are they ever? I should know if it's my favorite, but I feel like they never know it's the teacher until the very end. Like
No,
they're
they don't.
chasing
They don't.
around this other cult. Like that was an aspect of it. that
She
I
writes
really
on the
enjoyed.
chalkboard. That's how they figure, I think.
And she's just gone.
someone- Yeah, she's just gone. Because she's
Is she,
Satan or something.
is she Satan?
Or some
It's a-
Is she
offshoot.
hanging out
She's-
with Bruce Campbell?
We'll get there.
Different.
We'll get there, listeners.
That is later on, Nick.
Technically, like, there's an implication that she might be the devil from Millennium, but I don't want to go into that either.
Oh.
Gosh, Kyle.
Who's a
Fan
girl,
theories.
Lucy Butler. So, like,
Is that actress in Millennium?
she changes what she looks like every time she appears. So every
Because
time you see
Satan
Lucy,
would do that.
yeah.
He's not stupid. She's not stupid. Not stupid.
Oh, and also, I don't surprise anyone else, but Irresistible, the Donnie Faster episode. Like, I love that episode.
Really?
It's
That's
it's funny because it's like there's no paranormal in it, but it's still so menacing and scary. And that's the first time I thought, like, when Scully's his hostage, like, they might actually hurt Scully.
It's one of the first times where they definitely show her vulnerability, and which is natural given the type of character that Donnie Faster is. That's terrifying, a fetishist and the whole business. But it's on the flip side, because I think in the first season, the first time Mulder shows his vulnerability is in the episode Fire. And so it kind of is just nice, because again, it flips it. You get to see that. You get to see how she's trying to be strong in this world of men, even though this terrible thing just happened to her. And at the end, she's trying to be so strong for Mulder, but then you finally see her break down and just embrace him as her partner. To me, you guys have all tipped on every single one of my favorite episodes from season 2.
What's interesting, you mentioned fire. We didn't mention it from season 1.
Yes.
Apparently Mulder has a fire phobia that
Yes.
I believe he is completely over in season 2 already. I think he encounters fire and it's not a big deal at all. He thinks there's a fire on the other side of the wall in Sleepless, which is a season 2 episode. There isn't. The guy dies of smoke inhalation, but
Which one is
Tony
sleepless?
Todd is going around making people think their dreams are happening. So the fire alarm's going off. I think that's
Of course he is. That guy's shady.
Tony Todd.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, I didn't mean it. Don't come here.
Everyone literally covered my favorites. Dwayne Barry, Ascension, Irresistible, Humbug, and The Host. I mean, I could really go on and on, like I said, for each season, but for me to not ramble on, those are definitely up there.
The last thing about season 2. Season 2...
Well, there's more. We still
we
have
have to do worse.
Yeah, we still haven't. And I haven't done my favorites yet, mister.
Oh, okay. Well, this could segue into your favorites and then your worst. Is that season 2, out of all the seasons, all 9 of them, I feel like it doesn't... Like, my favorites aren't strong favorites, but my least favorites, I don't hate them. I'm not going to go, about them like I do with Space, or... It's pretty consistent, where I like every episode. So I didn't even mention Irresistible, because I like it a lot. It's just a fetishist, which I feel like there's whole TV shows that just centralize on finding people like that. And X-Files could just do an episode, and that's all you
Originally
need
he
to
was
see.
just necrophiliac, but they couldn't air that on TV, so they had to switch it to fetishist.
It's funny that you mentioned Irresistible. I'm going to preface that. Well, first let me talk about my favorites. So my favorites actually haven't been mentioned too much. I kind of zeroed in on One Breath. I like One Breath a whole lot because it does so much for her being bedridden. It's so powerful to me how that it's the nurse, there's the spiritual piece in it for her, and there's the whole conspiracy half of it in it for him, and they're starting to dovetail in a very meaningful way. And every time I watch that episode, I just think, wow, by the end of it, and I don't even remember which one comes right before it, the first part of that arc.
Right before One Breath? I can't remember.
I think it's 3.
three.
It's 3.
Yeah.
Because
Which
it's
is my
Dwayne
worst.
Barry, Ascension, 3,
That's my
and
least.
then One Breath, because
Right.
she's back.
I mean, I like the whole arc, but I really love that particular episode a lot. I like the 2 in Colony and Endgame because it introduces the Samantha clones, and it's not a good word I want to use on the podcast, mind. It just totally screws with your mind. Like, who is this? Where does she come from? Humbug was on my list, and I really have to... This is when I first started to notice the X-Files, but before I got really obsessed was in the triplicate of Anasazi, The Blessing Way, and Paperclip. Those blew my mind. This was when I stopped being a little reluctant, but it was before I got obsessed. Because they're so good, and they are so fast-paced. The Blessing Way is kind of the calm one. The ones on the ends are so fast-paced. This is the one where Mulder's father gets shot. His father that we know to be his father. And
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! And Krychek is deeply involved in that. We get to go to New Mexico. We find the boxcar with all the alien corpses. We learn about the smallpox vaccine. There's the digital tape. There's the wind talkers. I mean, there's literally like bam, 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 bam. So much conspiracy dropping in those 3 episodes that I love them. I love them because I love to quote them. I love them.
Is that the arc where we find out really where Skinner's loyalties lie?
In the sense that he tells the smoking man to pucker up and kiss my ass. Yeah. But that's actually the 3rd season, but it's the end of the arc.
You brought it up.
I know.
You did, yeah.
I did.
You did. You started
Those-
segueing into the
Which we will do.
Those are the first, that 3 that starts in season 2
Right.
is
Yeah,
the
that's the
first part where I'm like on board with the mythology. Even
Yes.
Colony and Endgame, I'm okay with it, but I'm still like, why aren't we
See-
seeing more Monsters of the Week?
I loved in Endgame because I'm a Skinner fan. That's the first one he beats the crap out of X, and you realize he actually cares more. Like that, you get a better idea of that he actually cares about Mulder and Scully more than they really let on before then. I mean, you could tell more him with Scully
Because you
when
weren't
she's
sure
abducted.
which field he was trying to
Exactly.
play.
Right.
Who was Skinner really working for? And then you finally feel the support coming out.
Which I
Right.
have
And
a
like
Because
feeling-
the cancer man was
rage.
hanging out in his office every
Yes.
week.
The rage he has underneath, like when you see him in his office and he's being a boss, but then when you see him let loose and what he's capable of.
Here's an X-Files they should do. Mitch Pileggi, has he aged in the past decade or two? He looks
I think he's younger.
Same.
We will judge when we watch the revival series.
When you're full of awesomeness, does it matter?
But I guess Gillian Anderson too. Mulder.
She's getting better looking.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
happening
See,
there?
Coveney's the
Hannibal.
only one who's.
Can we point out that she's like from our town? By the way, I mean she
Yes.
she
Grand
lived here and
Rapids,
worked at a
We hail
theater
from
that
Grand
several
Rapids,
people in
Michigan.
the room worked at.
That's
like,
very true.
so
Her pseudo-London English
Hi,
accent
Jillian,
might
if you're
confuse
listening, hail to you
we
from
love
Grand
you.
Rapids.
We love you, Jillian. Can I call you Joe? Is that cool? Just wanted to throw that out in case she's
Listening.
For sure.
listening. She's getting just
She
better
seems
looking.
to be
Okay.
into the podcasts. Yeah, I don't know.
Least favorite episode we kind of mentioned, but mine was 3.
Yeah, 3.
Same.
3's
I
a
don't-
poop. It's a pooper. Skip it.
It's just,
I
it's so
disagree.
moody. It's so
It's
moody,
not my favorite
but
or
not
least
in a,
favorite.
Yeah.
It's
moody with bad dialogue.
It's just dark. And it
drags.
doesn't really have anything to do with anything. And
Well, and then anytime they try to introduce a one-episode love interest for Mulder or Scully,
yeah,
it just doesn't feel right.
agreed.
Like I'm
Well,
fine with
it's-
them not being together, but trying to cram somebody into one episode.
Okay, but yes,
I
they
feel
were
that
still
way
very
later.
platonic at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, still, even so, I just feel like
I mean, yes, you feel the chemistry is kind of there, but they're still very platonic. And so at that point, he's kind of upset. His partner is gone. He feels probably like it's his fault. What would you do? You would probably...
3 is
I-
the vampire one.
Yes.
yeah, where they introduce Kristen,
I don't
and
believe
it's like a whole
I
little
don't
bottle
either.
episode of their
I disagree
relationship.
with them.
Well, I got no.
It's just boring. Like it doesn't.
Don't
Yeah.
care.
I totally have to agree with Hillary though. They are platonic at that. Like
No,
I didn't think.
I'm fine with them not
Yeah,
being together.
okay.
I wasn't
We're
shipping.
just bored with that.
I just felt like if you're gonna have them do a relationship like beginning and ending, do it over a couple episodes.
Yeah,
Don't
one,
just
you're
like
like-
cram it,
It's
like
funny how
speed
people
tracking it.
used to apparently not like vampires as much, and now it's
Well,
like
what doesn't...
I liked them still. Jeez.
so much
we
vampire hate
we
going
get
on.
a much better vampire episode.
I was gonna say
in
Bad
the
Blood
future.
later on is
Yeah.
like the
So
perfect
then you could-
vampire.
I
Really?
agree. That's true.
Okay, we can't even start talking about
I mean,
that one.
even
Okay.
Taylor
That's
Swift
season
was that way.
5.
It's
Sure,
too
let's talk
important.
about it,
I'm
right?
sorry. I'm sure everyone who's here and who's listening can agree Bad Blood is too important to talk about this early.
So, do you like 3?
Do I like 3?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Hillary likes
But
every.
What's your least favorite in season 2 then? What's worse than 3?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say the F emasculata because it's disgusting. Because it's disgusting, and I do not get grossed out. She can attest to this because she's known me the longest. Things do not gross me out, but the popping boils filled with pussy goo. I mean, it's still a great story, and it's there's definitely some scare factor in there. I'm not saying that's what I'm saying. Don't overanalyze what I say because I don't really dislike any of these episodes that you guys are hating on. I do
We're
not.
just saying they're weaker.
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that's my example because that's the best reason I can come up with to say I like it less.
Didn't you think
F-
our town was grosser than that?
I do think that's gross.
Yeah.
But for me, like,
just
skin
didn't like-
boils are grosser than someone getting their head chopped off.
And-
Like,
And eating it?
and, well, I didn't watch them do it, right?
Okay,
Yes,
alright.
That's her logic.
I really like that episode, by the way, but I just
Our
think
town
it's
is really
pretty
good.
I like our town. I like that one. Emasculata? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's not even... It's very good. And it doesn't even necessarily is an X-Files. It's just a Contagion. It's not-
That one made my disgusting list, but
But-
it's well written. I like that one.
I didn't say it was not. You guys
It's
totally
better than
missed what I
Soft
just
Light.
I know,
said.
I got it.
I know,
got it.
but...
Nick
what about
is in his
Soft Light?
defensive posture right now.
Should we move on?
We might be having back and forth defensive posture.
It's gonna happen. Well, and I'm gonna throw some controversy on this controversy fire. So, a couple of you mentioned, well, mainly it was Kyle, mentioned both the host and the Irresistible as your favorites. Those are actually my least favorite out of the season.
Oh, well, you're
They're
wrong.
so iconic.
Well, part of it is because they're so iconic.
Okay.
They're a little too, and it's not because they're bad. I actually think they're very well done. The host is a little too high on the disgust meter, so if I was going to pick a least favorite for me, that would
Why
be
are you
it.
watching the
So
X-Files?
you literally just took the same logic that I had
I know.
and put it on the host,
I
which
did.
is a much better episode than the episode that I referenced.
That's probably true.
But it's also personal opinion. So you
It's
can't-
also personal opinion. And Irresistible,
Whose side are you on?
I'm just trying to be unbiased, although I love my wife.
that's very good. That's good to know. Irresistible, it's not that I think it's bad. It's actually because of all the episodes that scare me, that's the one that scares me the most. Because that one is based on an actual human with a problem.
Another not real X-File.
I know.
It's not an alien.
It's not an alien. It's
something
not the
that can
paranormal.
happen.
It's one of those episodes, and they've done them all throughout. All the seasons have at least one of these kind of episodes where it's some random human problem. But that has got to be the most disturbing one of all. More props than anything to the actor who plays Donnie Faster, because he was creepy.
Hey,
as
Kylie,
you know what.
just don't watch Criminal Minds.
I know.
Okay, because I don't think you
over
can
and
handle
over
it. I'm
again.
just interjection there.
That's fine. I won't.
I'm being a friend here. I love that series, but man, it's like
I
that,
still
it's
watch-
like that episode
Uh-huh.
every week. So
Okay.
So
yeah.
no.
I still watch Irresistible. I still appreciate Irresistible.
But it is scary.
But
It
it's
is
scary. And if I'm going to pick least favorite, that's where I'm going to
So you
land.
don't want to be scared by the X-Files?
No, I do,
Well.
just not by that one.
It was just too scary.
It was too scary.
It crossed a line for her personally.
Yes, it did. It crossed the line.
But that's why so many other people like it.
Yeah.
And that's probably why
last
it was
time I
Kyle
mentioned
likes
it,
horror.
Irresistible is actually the backdoor pilot for Millennium.
Oh.
That's why they wanted to try that, but they didn't want to just do it as its own separate show yet. And when that one got all its ratings, then they're like, okay, we can do a serial killer, demonic show, and that's where it spun off from.
How many shows exist because of the X-Files? Like, you never saw an
A lot.
autopsy on TV until Scully. Now you have, like, thousands of shows that are just about...
Autopsies. I know.
Or the word profiler. Did anyone know, mainstream know that before Mulder?
No, not really. There were no real FBI based shows.
Or like
No.
the lone gunman, the geek hacker guys that the FBI uses. Like, so many tropes just created right there.
It's a good show, I think, maybe.
It's cultural touchstone, I believe, was in my introduction. So, any other least favorites? I know it's very controversial that I said that. I still like those episodes, but they are my least favorite in season 2.
I'll mention towards the end of my list, just because it's the season opener, Little Green Men. It's probably my least favorite season opener out of all 9 seasons. I feel like not much happens. I don't know. It just...
It's the continuation of the Erlenmeyer Flask.
But essentially the plot boils down to Mulder's gone, Scully go get him.
Yeah.
Like,
And,
That happens a couple times.
yeah, I know, but it's the most basic of those. Like, it doesn't really...
and then he's just locked in.
Like, it's not bad. I'm just... For
I
a
don't-
season opener, out of every single season, it was a pretty weak one.
But again, it was still its establishment.
Exactly. We're not saying it's bad. It's just if weaker episode because there's so many good ones in season 2. That is a weaker one in my opinion too.
Like the host, if that's how they opened it, that'd be great.
It did introduce Skinner.
The Little Green Men did?
No, the host.
The host did. See? You don't even need Little Green Men. I would never skip it though, but I just thought it was interesting that, as I was going through the season, I really don't care for that episode, and usually the season opener and closers are supposed to hook the audiences either back in or get new people, and that one didn't do it for me.
The only other thing that I would want to add about season 2, actually, if you take out 8 and 9, season 2 would be my least favorite of the first 7. Only
Take out so your third least favorite. So
Right.
8 and 9 do exist.
they do exist. Only because the first half a dozen episodes where they're kind of, Scully's going to leave, we're starting to panic, oh wait, we're going to have her abducted, she's abducted, those were a little wonky. And then once they get past, starting with the arc with Dwayne Barry and all of those, then it just clicks from then on, with everything, to me. But let's talk about season 3, because I think season 3 is going to dominate this first episode's conversation. I think there's a lot of favorites coming out of this one. Am I
It's a good
wrong?
season.
Or
It's a good
it's
season.
a good season.
But I have more episodes in season 3 that I don't. They're all right. I watch them and I enjoy them to a certain extent. But for a series that I've watched completely all the way through, season 2 has a lot less of those episodes that this one's next. that I balk about watching. But season 3 has like some of my favorites of all time. Like Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose.
I'm going to say
If
that
that's-
most people are going to say Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, and if you don't, you're a little crazy.
That's my favorite episode this season.
Well, to be honest with you, if there was the way to write a perfect TV episode, I don't know that Clyde Bruckman couldn't be the example. It's literally perfection from moment one to end. It's a well set up story. Peter Boyle is magical. They have the humor aspect on the one hand. They have the deeply philosophical part on the other hand. Again, we're starting to tie in a little spirituality, yanking Scully in, but we've got the paranormal with his psychic ability. I mean, it's everything that the X-Files is, and it's also just a really good hour of television.
Before we dive into the plot, if we are going to, there's 3 interesting casting notes about it.
Tell us, Nick.
First, the fortune teller with the crystal ball will come back to play the mother in Home, who's just slid under the bed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
The fortune teller, they're all fortune tellers that he kills. I think it's the one with the tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Humbug. He runs the Curiosity Shop.
Oh.
And he's also
That I
in
didn't
Jose
know.
Chung from Outer Space. He's doing hypnosis. He was supposed to be in War of the Caprophages as the guy in the wheelchair with the bugs, but scheduling couldn't do it, but that was a friend of Darren Morgan's.
Okay.
And the stupendous Yappy was Duchovny's stand-in.
I did know that.
So those are all interesting things that don't help the story, but it's already the best episode anyway.
It should be.
Or
It should
one
be
of them.
noted that in
Of
the
season 3.
Vancouver years, which was seasons 1 through 5,
Mhm.
they recycled guest stars a lot. I mean,
They really did.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of multiple instances
yeah,
where that happened.
cry check.
Let's cry check.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that could have been. I mean,
So is
I can see
Clyde
Krychek
Bruckman.
doing that.
But he's like the Capaldi of this. He only did the one, and then came back as a big, huge character.
It's true.
So,
He's the Peter.
it wasn't
Capaldi
that
of
he-
X-Files.
He's not like a Rachel Dratch in 30 Rock, where he kept popping up as different things.
Right.
He's just Capaldi'd his way on in there.
Yeah, true. So is Clyde Bruckman's everyone's?
It's on my list.
It's
I
my
have
favorite,
3.
easily.
I have 3 favorites.
Yeah.
The only
I
reason I
have-
wouldn't say easily is because Jose Chung's from Outer Space
It's
is like
good.
That's also
so
on my
good to
list.
me.
Because Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anybody see the sequel episode on Millennium?
No.
Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense?
I did, but a long
It's
time ago.
heartbreaking if you like Jose Chung. Don't watch it.
Oh, the character?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
Well, you just did.
But it also has a stupendous Yappy in it, and
Oh, who's dead? Aw.
like it's awesome. It's a great 2-part because I mean it's one episode and 2 different shows just split up.
I would watch. Is Millennium on Netflix? Anyone?
It used to be.
I
I think they
don't
pulled it a
believe it
long
is
time
right
ago
now.
though.
You
Because
own
I
it?
would watch it.
Yeah,
Because we
somewhere.
live down the street from you, so bring it on
We'll
over.
edit that out.
Keeps coming up.
But Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, it's so irreverent in some scenes and then heart wrenching in others.
But yeah, very sweet and just there are moments where it's very simple and you
What-
feel like you're really relating to the scenarios that when they're dialoguing back and forth.
The
Plus-
crudest joke in it is
Oh.
the most heartwarming payoff. Like, where it seems like he's hitting on her, we're going to end up to bed together, and then it's like the last moment of the
See,
episode. And
my favorite moment of the episode is the implication that Mulder will someday die from autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah.
Like,
While at the other hand, Scully's immortal.
yes.
Don't you know? That's a fan theory that came
It
out
is.
of Clyde Bruckman
Yeah,
because
it is.
he says you won't die. So Scully is in fact immortal. She was never going to die from cancer.
could see
All false alarm. Oh, spoilers.
You're going ahead.
I know,
Kylie,
I'm
you
sorry.
keep doing it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she scolded us in advance. She's
Yeah.
like, hey, by the way.
Moderator's privilege. Anyone else?
That's not the way it works.
So I picked I have
Tell
Jose
us.
Chung and I have Clyde Bruckman, but I also picked the episode Oubliette.
Oh.
And I don't know if anyone's a fan, and I don't know why I like it so much, but I like the actress who later comes back in.
A Reyes episode.
It is a Reyes episode where Reyes is like dead in that little mini hospital thing. It's like season 8 or something, but 9. It's 9.
It's
Okay.
nine.
That's a
It
weird
is.
one where you're like, is that the same character? Didn't she die? She seems like she's the same character.
And again, like,
Well, they were probably
is
a
that
little more
tied
desperate.
in somehow?
But
I
it went
don't
from
know,
Vancouver
but
to LA.
I really liked Oubliette. I don't know why. I thought it was just well done and well executed. So there we
Oh,
go.
Pusher, I also really like, which is like Vince Gilligan's big episode, pre-Breaking Bad fame.
Mm-hmm.
But like any episode with a great villain, I love. So like he's one of the top.
Robert Modell is one of my favorites. I love him. I love him. I love the whole beginning with the cerulean blue and the whole suggestion. Cerulean blue. Yes. The whole, it's just, and it freaked me out, the power of suggestion and someone having that ability to do so. And then at the end, when Scully comes around the corner and just sees them sitting at the table staring at each other. Ugh!
It's
oh my
tense.
gosh, I mean, yeah, it's very tense, but you can feel it as the viewer. You definitely can feel it and connect with it. And that moment when, he turns the gun at her and she's just like, really, Mulder, come on. It's a very intense episode. It sticks with you.
Agreed.
All right. I'm just going to toss out my favorites. Clyde Bruckman, Jose Chung, both made it. I want to repeat Paperclip because I think that's just an excellent tie-off to that arc. I put Piper Maru and Apocrypha because those were the ones that got me hooked on the episode. It's introduced the black oil, which people either like or don't like the black oil.
Whether you like it or not, it's big. I mean, especially the movie, like the X-Files movie. Like, if you don't see those, then you're just watching X-Files and be like, oh, what is everybody worried about?
Yes.
I don't think anyone doesn't like it in this season. I think they might overuse it at a certain point, and it's a little confusing.
Well, it is confusing, and they don't explain it until season 6. But to me, I think what hooked me was in Apocrypha, Krychek gets infected with the black oil, and through the intelligence of this ooze, ends up in the UFO in North Dakota, South Dakota, whatever. And there's that scene where he's parked on the UFO, convulsing the stuff out of his face. I mean, that was just very memorable and striking to me.
Which, as a side note, I was there when she saw that first episode. Because I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you were as into it at that point, but you were with me when I was watching it, so I don't even think you realized that you were watching that. But Kylie is not as easily, she gets pretty easily grossed out.
Yep.
And that was definitely one of those first moments where she was like, oh my gosh, ew. With the black oil coming out of his face, which is a fair thing.
It's very memorable. But the one episode that hasn't been mentioned that I want to toss out as one of my favorites from this season is Revelations with the stigmata. The child that has, it's the first, I mean, it's not really
Kevin Seegers. Seegers, the actor.
Oh, sure.
He's really little. He's been in many things.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, but we've been informed about Scully's spirituality. This is one of those episodes, and quite a few of these episodes make my list, actually. And this would be the first one, where Scully's faith, she has to very much overcome her scientific piece to buy into what's happening. And a lot of that usually comes with the protection of a child. And Revelations is the first time we see that. And it's a very compelling one. Here again, you have Mulder kind of snip, 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 skeptical in the background. I just really love it. I think it's very powerful. It's not as powerful as others, but it's kind of the first of those episodes, and the way they work. So,
is that the one where the kid has?
Yes.
Owen is like watching over him. He's the big tall guy.
Yes.
His name is Owen, and I connected that to One Breath, Nurse Owen, who wasn't really there or not.
Right.
But there was never anything of that. I don't think. I think it was just a random. But I was like, is there something maybe in Chris Carter's life that he was throwing that into the episodes? I don't know, but that's a good one. Isn't from Full Metal Jacket? I think the drill sergeant is the first.
Arlie
fakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stigmata guy. It's weird. His career is confusing to me.
I'm going to throw out my least favorite.
Go for
it. Really hard for me to pick.
3 was hard,
but
I only have 1.
I picked Quagmire, and here's why.
Oh, I like Quagmire.
Because the dog died. Listen to my reason.
Queeg Quag. You're going to say
Queeg Quag died. That's the only reason I picked it. It upset me.
You guys moved on to your least favorites, but I was going to say that's one of the ones that didn't get mentioned of my favorites.
Quagmire. I do really like it. I could only pick a least favorite. I'm like, I'll just put this one.
Well, tell us what your favorites do. It was just Quagmire was the only
Yeah,
different
that
one?
was it. All the other ones were mentioned, of course, and without me not going on and on about others that probably people care less about. I do love Quagmire. I do love Quagmire a lot. I think it's a really good episode, and I just particularly love towards the end where they think they're stranded out in the middle of nowhere. And they're very close to the shore. And just the interchange that they have there. They start to talk about to each other they're connecting more, and they're talking just simply about growing up. She tells him the story about, her being called Starbuck, and that's why she names the dog Queequeg. And to me, just that in and of itself made the whole episode.
Yeah, I agree.
And that it's just an alligator at the end. I feel like that needs to happen more, right? Like in the X-Files, it shouldn't always be aliens.
But
It was Big Blue.
Big
Blue was at the end.
He didn't.
They
He wasn't
just
the
showed
killer.
it at the
He
end.
was there,
But
but
it was a
peaceful.
giant
The
gator.
alligator was killing things. That's what
Yeah.
got their attention.
Yeah,
but
it was the
the
alligator.
but the sea monster was there.
Still existed.
Right, but that's not what they were. Well,
the
I know
funny
what
thing
you're
is-
saying, but in the end, it wasn't Big Blue.
But the funny thing is, like,
they
they see the obvious answer and then they just leave. And if they just dig more,
They
like they
would've found
usually
They
do,
would've found it.
Yeah, but something would have drawn Scully's attention away, and she wouldn't have seen it. Like,
It just made me sad because that was Clyde's dog, right?
That's-
Yeah,
Clyde
it
Berkman's
was.
dog.
Well, no,
It
it
was
was
the
neighbor's
old-
dog.
it was his
Oh,
neighbor's
that's
dog.
what
He
it's
just
called.
asked Scully to
But-
watch it.
yeah, the dog that
Also-
ate the dog that ate her.
Yeah.
Also,
That's
though,
true.
it was like
ate
another
the woman.
tie to her dad because she named it Queequeg.
It's dead.
It just got eaten by an alligator. I guess I got
It
sad.
shouldn't have ran away. An episode I liked that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was important that it showed their relationship was Syzygy, where the stars are aligning.
Oh, sis.
Okay,
And they really
that one's
play-
on my least. That's my least favorite
Really?
of season 3.
Oh my gosh,
Really?
they start playing on like
Sure, fine, whatever.
yeah.
I love Sure Fine Whatever. I hate the girls. Lisa Robin Kelly, and I don't remember whatever her name is. I know.
The girls are not as. I mean, yes, it's about them, but it's not about them.
I know. I hate. Well,
But they're
that's
already
just it. I
able to
hate
play
the whole
onto
plot.
the established relationship between them. Just thought that
That's
was
when
an
they're
important episode.
arguing, like really having, like almost seriously, like a married couple's argument.
Your little
He's-
feet
and
can't
I-
reach the pedals.
I say Sure Fine Whatever quite frequently in my life. I just, yeah. I maybe because I feel it's. Aside from that piece, is less of an X-File because of the whole astrology thing. It's a little weird. That's all I'm saying.
Wait a minute.
I know.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make any.
They're
Your line is arbitrary.
That's true.
I mean, the girls are supposed to be obnoxious, so they're
I
being
know.
successful in their roles. I don't know
know.
why it would make you dislike it altogether. You are entitled to your opinion.
I don't dislike it altogether. To be honest with you, picking a least favorite out of season 3 was hard. I
Okay.
could not.
It was
pick
easy
a
for
least
me.
It was easy. What's your least favorite?
The walk,
That's my second least favorite.
the walk, or the list.
That's my
Because
least
there's so
favorite.
They're essentially the same episode.
Yeah.
The walk really doesn't work because I felt like the actor playing the villain, for one, you could tell right away there was no mystery in who was killing
Yeah.
these people.
It's the guy
And he's
that
just
lost
he was a
his
ter-
limbs.
yeah.
He's astral projecting.
Yes.
Oh.
And the actor
Oh,
was
yeah.
a terrible
Okay, I'll add that
actor, so
one.
he has
Yeah.
no menace or like
Forgot
you don't
about that.
care.
Yeah, you don't really
And then
care.
the list, it's just
The list. Oh, well, what I learned from the list is if I read enough, I'll be able to come back in another life as another thing to kill people.
And seek out your
Like, he
revenge.
just read a bunch. They said, oh,
Yeah.
he's just read a lot of books. And that's why he was able to come
Yeah,
back
his
and
prison
kill
mates
people
were
as
warning
flies
people.
or maggots. I don't know.
yeah.
Yes.
It was weird. It
Well,
wasn't.
and they tried too many fake outs in that episode, like too many extra characters. Like it could be this person or this. Like
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
was just overly convoluted for a bottle episode.
I was shocked when I found the list was like Chris Carter wrote, because usually he knows what he's
What-
doing.
So tell me, which one's the list again?
The list, there's a prisoner
The
who
prison.
dies, and there's like 5 people on his list that he was
He
going
wants
to
to
kill.
get revenge on.
Oh,
essentially.
And they
right.
start
Because of his
I like-
mistreatment in the system.
Well,
Well, but he killed
I
the
feel like I
executioner,
liked the
that's
list
Yeah.
a little better than the walk.
They're my 2 least favorite. The
Okay.
list and the walk.
I just
Actually,
thought the walk was a little boring.
Actually, that's well.
Yeah.
I don't even like Hell Money or Avatar.
Oh yeah, I don't really care for Hell Money.
You don't like Avatar?
Oh,
I like.
Isn't that the one with Skinner? And
I like
Yes.
Skinner, and I like the Lone Gunman, but when you give them an episode, it's too much almost.
Yeah, they're good as like flavoring on other
Yeah.
episodes. When you try to just cram them in their own, it feels a little stretched.
And that's how I feel about
I didn't
Skinner
mind
and
Hell
Avatar.
Money. Hell Money's the Chinese one, right?
Well, you get Baby Waller.
love that
and
one.
I like that
Lucy
one.
Liu.
That one freaks my freak though, because
I don't like that one as much.
I'm a little bored by it.
Which one was the other one you mentioned besides Hell Money?
Avatar.
Which one was that again?
Skinner might have killed a prostitute or something.
Yeah, it's like,
I
and
like
I
that one, too.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I like giving Skinner more backstory and like exploring that.
That's why I liked it.
But part of the problem was like his wife. Like, I didn't feel like they had any chemistry. So like,
well,
what
no,
they were
they're
going.
getting a divorce.
Well, even the actors, no, not even just like that. Like, I didn't feel like they even really hated, loved. I just don't feel like, I didn't feel like they ever had a connection, love, hate, divorce, or any either of that.
So you couldn't.
But I blame that more on the actress than him. Like, I felt like he was
I like
great,
that
but
actress.
I just didn't connect to that story.
I'm not defending the episode.
She was Vash on Star
She
Trek:
sure
The Next
was. She had plenty of
Generation.
chemistry with
Is that
Patrick
who
Stewart
that is?
Yes, and Avatar.
She's a
and
genius.
John Delaney.
Can we get her to come?
Sure.
What
Come on. What's her
celebrity
name?
guess? You were in 2
I
episodes,
don't know her name.
or only
Hey,
one.
Vash.
Well, she was also Vash, though.
Right.
Who's Vash?
Okay,
She's very good.
so she was in 3 episodes of TV we like. She'll come.
She was in others. I'm looking it up. You continue.
Fair enough.
Was this a next gen thing?
Yes,
Okay.
and Deep Space Nine. She's in Deep Space Nine as Bosch. With Q.
I'm not as
Different
Star
podcast.
Trekian as some of the people here.
It's really everybody else. Because everybody likes the Star Trek besides you.
I like it. I
Okay.
just am not as familiar.
Fair enough.
This is just a general thing. I think I lived for the mythology episodes watching the show, but then, like, once you see them a couple of times, they're not as powerful as the Monsters of the Week. So, like, going through it again, like, they start blending together, all of them, in my opinion.
Not for me. The mythology for me, through season 6, we'll talk about this in the next episode, through Two Fathers, One Son, is powerful. After we get past Two Fathers, One Son, I start to go, what? What's going on? Because it starts with the origins thing. We'll talk about that. Then it gets into the super soldiers thing. Not a fan. Okay, we'll talk about that. But I still love those episodes. And what I love about them, especially rewatching them, is going back and picking up what I didn't pick up the first time. Because there's a lot of confusing misdirects that they just loved peppering those episodes with, which was hilarious when you watch them now from the perspective of, now I think I know what's going on. Oh yeah, oh that's what that meant. That's usually what I'm doing. But I also appreciate the standalone episodes much more rewatching them. Although there are some that were good the first time, I mean they're all good, that I loved the first time that I still love, and I just get excited. Oh, that one's next. I'm going to watch that one right now, kind of thing. So that's the way I feel.
Guys, we didn't talk about this, but how about the first time they changed The Truth Is Out There at the end of the credits?
Yeah.
I
That
mean-
which also was attached to the mythology episode.
When did that happen for the first time?
I think it was, I want to say EVE. I think the first one it changed to was Deny Everything, which was just like, when that happened, I was like, OMG, what does this mean?
Exactly.
My life is changing.
Anytime the words changed, those words appeared in the episode at some point.
Yes.
So it was like Deny Everything. One of them was Trust No
Trust
One,
No One.
which they repeated often.
Believe the lie.
Believe the lie.
Yes.
And
Is it ever not everything dies, or is that just
Everything
something-
dies.
Everything dies.
and then
Everything
that episode
dies.
ends with not everything
Thing
dies.
dies.
so yeah, and even now, I rewatched up through season 6 before today, and I still love seeing that. Oh wait, this is one of
so do
those.
I.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's exhilarating.
Because it's a little bit different than the truth is out there.
Can everyone go around quick and say their favorite episode of the 3 seasons and least favorite of the 3? Or is that
Sure,
too rare
if you
for
want
people?
to. So you have to pick one of the favorites that you said as being the favorite of the first 3 seasons, and pick one of the least favorite to be your least favorite.
Is that too hard?
Hillary's she's having an
I'm
aneurysm.
having a meltdown.
We don't have to.
Maybe somebody else can do that. Because again, that's like picking between children for me. Let me think about it a minute. I'll get back to you.
My all-time favorite out of all 10 seasons is still Hosts, which I just love that. Because for one, in the whole episode, they think it's their last time working together. Like Scully So I just love that episode, and I love Fluke Man.
You said 10 seasons. Are you counting the comic, or are you counting Little
Comic.
Government?
I read the comic, so I count season 10 comic. So, and my worst season 1 overall is still 3, just because it was just so dull and moody.
Sarah gives the thumbs up.
I don't know. I'm giving a thumbs up on a podcast. I'm with you,
Real
child.
helpful.
I'll go next. Then my least favorite is 3. I'm like, if I had to pick, I'd probably say Clyde Bruckman. That's the Final Repose.
That's my
Me
favorite.
and Clyde are like on the same plane.
Peter Boyle. And my least favorite is Space out of the 3 seasons.
Hilary, you were bowing out of this?
I just can't do it. I just can't do it.
Sophie's choice.
For me, Clyde Bruckman, I would probably have to tie Clyde Bruckman and Paperclip. Paperclip is one of my all-time favorite episodes. But Clyde Bruckman is ethereally good. As far as least favorite, none of my least... To qualify my least favorites from the first 3 seasons, none of my least favorites are like my least favorite of the series. Those were just the ones I picked for those seasons. So I wouldn't even know which one to pick. Like, I don't mind the Jersey Devil. I don't mind Syzygy. I don't mind the Host or Irresistible. I don't mind any of those.
That's because those were all good episodes.
Right! Exactly. So I can't say that I have a least favorite. When we get into later episodes, ask me that question again. Okay? Especially season 9. I'm just going to say it. Well, I think we have thoroughly covered seasons 1 through 3 in our first episode. And we're going to wrap it up here. But stay tuned. We have 4 more parts to this lovely podcast series about the X-Files. In our next episode, we will be discussing seasons 4 through 6. So please keep checking out the blog. Check out YouTube. Check out iTunes. Subscribe to the blog. Subscribe to the Facebook page. Subscribe to the iTunes podcast so you can keep up with these wonderful episodes. Until the next time, keep watching. And please catch up on the X-Files if you haven't done that, because this just will not be a very good thing for you to listen to if you don't do it. But keep checking out the blog, keep watching, keep listening. We'll talk to you soon.